Alright, so I'm going to do a video on breeding guppies this time. If you've seen my breeding mollies video, this tank will look very similar in that I used to breed mollies in here, and I still do. I didn't exactly sell them or anything. I just had a massive biological collapse from letting my roommate feed my fish. And I had a lot of them die. And I had started breeding guppies as a little side project, so what happened was, instead of buying more mollies, which I did buy a few more to kind of reseed the genetic, pool there, I primarily just went ahead and filled this tank back up with guppies that I already had bred. All the guppies you see in here came from a pool of about 8, and they came from different places. I got some from Walmart, I got some from PetSmart, and I got some from a third mom and pop pet shop, kind of a mix of places. And so I got them from different places, so they have a diverse genetic background. At least I'm hoping so. So anyway, all of the guppies you see here, like all these, that's a molly, that orange one. That's mollies. Somewhere in here. You see, there's one back there with like the bluish tail. There's a whole. There, I was trying to get the camera lined up with them. There's a whole mass of them, except for that black one, which is a molly. And some of the others, but the majority of those are guppies. You see those fancy ones, they're like orange and black and blue, and those were not, I did not get those that color. They bred and they made some that color, which I think they're the sharpest looking guppies out of all the ones I've got. But I'm going to give you some tips on breeding them. First of all, it takes a couple of fish tanks. A lot of people start out like a small fish tank, like a 5 or 10 gallon, end up moving something bigger. That's what I did. So this tank here is 39 gallon. I already had it set up, and just one thing and the other. I didn't really breed them in here. I just sort of distributed them in here. But basically, to breed mollies, you got to have one of these, which is going to be kind of hard to see. But that's just a separator, like like a separator. It's a plastic thing with like netting, kind of like screen stuff. You can't really tell. There, that's better. And basically has some suction cups. I had it attached to the inside of a fish tank, and the guppies would breed and have fried, come home to a lot of them. Now I will say this for anybody who thinks, well, I might want some guppies to breed. Well, guppies breed far more than mollies ever do. Like I would get 3 or 4 mollies a month maybe, and they would kind of breed up to a point, fill the tank, and then I'd only get new ones when and if some of the older ones died off, or maybe some got sick and died off, who knows what. And if you're wondering why my aquarium's so clear, on a side note, that is a UV sterilizer back there. Get them from eBay. You attach a tube to a little blue thing at the top and dangle it outside, no air pump attached, and it will sit there and blast air bubbles like a power head. Also sterilizes the water and keeps it crystal clear. You still get your bacteria though in the base of the rocks and stuff, because it just keeps the bacteria in the main water column clear. It doesn't prevent it from growing on surfaces in the fish tank. So you get your sidewalls, your rocks, any kind of your decorations that get bacteria growing on them, and you get your bacteria. But back to the mollies. Basically, all you have to do with your mollies is get the temperature up to about 80 degrees, and you can't really tell, but I've got a lid on here. I've got my filtration. All you're seeing is black. I'm not going to torture you with that, but basically, you get your temperature up to 80 degrees either through the use of heaters. You put your lid on. You try not to keep any open spaces in the back of the lid. Very little, as little as you can absolutely get away with. And it holds the heat in. You get your water temperature up to about 80 degrees, and they will do nothing but breed. I didn't breed them in here, so this isn't really a good tank to show you for breeding them. But we'll go on to the next place, which we'll just keep going. We'll come back to that one. But anyway, another UV sterilizer in here. The water looks crappier for a couple of reasons. One of them because I got a new filter tonight, right there. I already had the other filter on. You can't overdo filtration. You can, but you can't. I have hornwort in here. Hornwort's kind of hard to keep alive. I mean, it's not really. Like, it's supposedly one of the easiest aquarium plants to grow. I just never had much success initially until I figured out the stupidest secret. When it comes to growing any aquarium plants, here's a secret to making them live for more than a short time. Your filters have activated carbon in them. Okay? Activated carbon filters out the metals and stuff in the water. The problem is, it filters out the stuff that keeps the plants alive as well. So, if you want a planted tank, well and good, make sure you have a non-planted tank to go with it. Like, over here, I have no plants in this, so I keep all... So what I started doing, I know it doesn't really reflect it over there because I don't have much hornwort, but I just learned this stupid little fact the other day. Learned it from a friend of mine, then Googled it, and found out it was pretty true. So, over here, no plants. 55-gallon tank, goldfish, minnows, shiners, and a couple of Thai algae eaters, those brown ones, and somewhere in here I got a black lace cat. But once again in the back, water is kept crystal clear by the UV sterilizer behind the thermometer. The one I've modded over on the other tank with sink screens to keep the fry from getting sucked in, because that was my breeding tank. The power head's powerful, it will suck fry in. Over here it doesn't matter. But, oh, there's my lace cat down there. But back to the subject of breeding mollies. You got to have some kind of floating plant, hornwort, java moss, anacaris, anything like that. The trick to keeping them alive is to not have activated carbon. Now that sounds kind of counterintuitive. How do you not have activated carbon? It's called, you have multiple fish tanks, or I have multiple fish tanks. So what I do is when I have to refill this one because maybe the water gets low or I'm doing a water change, then I will refill it from the sink using the stuff, you know, the water conditioning stuff or whatever. Refill it. I've got the filters on here that I change out. They have activated carbon. I keep these filters changed out all the time. Okay? And then like once a month I'll change them out. And it keeps the water, it removes the metals and all that stuff. It also removes the phosphors and the various other things for the plants, but in here it doesn't matter because there are no plants. So what do? Whenever I need to fill this tank over here, I get water from this tank over here and fill this tank over here. And the various other ones that I'm trying to grow plants in. This one, like I said, I had some plants in that died. Didn't really have much luck with them, and I didn't learn why until the other day. But then I refill this from the sink, use this water after it's been run through the filters a bunch to fill up the other tanks that have plants. You'll see in a minute I've got one tank that I've got the hornwort that did really successful. That's because for the longest time I didn't have any filtration in it whatsoever, and then when I added it, it actually started killing it. So why did I get more filtration on this tank, a new filter today, when I am going to have more hornwort in here shortly? Here's the reason why. I took the old filter cartridges from this tank over here, and I've got the same filters on all of them, so all the filters are kind of interchangeable. Moved over one of the biological filter pads to the new one. But the main thing is that I took the old filter cartridges out of this filter, or the filters over here, cut them open, and removed the activated carbon from them, and then put them in here where they serve one purpose: to filter out the fish poop. They don't need to filter the metals and the phosphors and all that stuff. I just need them to filter out the fish poop, which supposedly, if you have enough plants, it can actually do some of that too, but the plants do biological filtering, not necessarily mechanical filtering. I've got my big Plecostomus algae eater that helps with that stuff to a degree, but this filter over here, I got another filter on here. The cartridge has been in it so long, the activated carbon is no longer activated. So it's already clogged. So it's like it's already done the damage it could do. I'm not swapping it out. But you grow hornwort, you put it in your tank, and as long as you don't have activated carbon in your filter, it will grow and multiply and fill your tank. And what will happen is your guppies, you get your tank water to 80 degrees, your guppies will then breed and you separate them out into, like, say you had this kind of down in the tank. This is where I originally had it, was down inside this tank, kind of attached to the wall over here. And I would separate the guppy fry into it. Well, the problem is, this little thing, even though it's kind of big, the guppies will breed. If you separate their fry out, they will breed and breed and breed. Like, I would come home to 1 or 2 dozen a night, every night, for 2 weeks in a row. Or every couple of nights, I would have 1 or 2 dozen new ones. And then I would separate them out. Now I'm going to show you where I separated them to. We'll go back here. You remember that 10-gallon tank I said that I initially had, that I kind of moved up from? Well, I set it back up and put hornwort in it. Lo and behold, the hornwort is doing really good, because all I had in here, the only filtration, I added a filter at some point. You're not going to be able to see it because it's probably dark, but you can kind of see it right there. It's a stupid little filter that's not pumping very much water, and I'm going to end up removing it. But the upshot of it is the hornwort does really good in here with zero filtration. I have, what do you call it? Oh, you can barely see it, but way in the back I got a sponge filter. They're like a couple of bucks on eBay. You know, free shipping from China. You know, not much. And you just attach an air pump to it. I've got a double air pump thing, one running to the sponge filter and one running to just an air stone that's bubbling right back there in the right side of your screen. And it pretty much just sits in there and does the thing. The fish poop. The plant filters it out and it grows. You got to cut this plant up every so often. It'll get about a foot long, and when it does, you cut it up like into, I don't know, 6-8 inch strings. It'll grow again, whatever, and keep it healthy and alive. I've had a lot of die off on here where I haven't really maintained the plant, where it's just sort of dropped off and hit the bottom and started rotting. I got a Plecostom's algae eater to put in here, and he just ain't big enough yet to really have made much of a dent, but I'm hoping eventually he'll be able to keep the bottom clean. But I moved my fry in here. Why are my fries so big? Because honestly, I kind of stopped doing this after a while, because it's a lot of work to every night come home from work and have to scoop out 1 or 2 dozen fish, and they would hide. They're really good. So if you don't separate the pregnant mother, and honestly, once a fish is pregnant, it will look pregnant the rest of its life. So it's kind of hard to tell which one's pregnant, which one's not. You know, maybe somebody can, but I'm not really good at it. And so I would just have to scoop the fry out with a net and move them into this tank here, and they would grow. And I had probably about 200 or 300 fish in here, literally, that came from 8. And then when the biological collapse happened in that tank, I was able to clean it, get it back in gear, get it back running, and I just filled it with guppies from here. So even though this was a fry tank, it is now a guppy tank, simply because I've got more fish than I know what to do with. I was originally going to get rid of them, give them to friends. You know, maybe my brother was going to set up a fish tank, and none of that ever really came to fruition. And I live an hour from the closest pet store, so they're not really easy to get rid of. If you don't filter out and scoop out the molly or the guppy babies, they will get eaten by their elders. But that can be kind of a good thing. Like out in my 29-gallon tank, which we'll go back out there. Out in the 29-gallon tank, there is a out in the 29-gallon tank, there is a they'll eat, like, I just stopped scooping them out. They breed, they have their babies, and all they do is eat them. Some of them survive, some of them don't. But if you notice, this tank here is not filled to the brim with tons and tons of fish. I put some guppies in here. I've got a few mollies in there too, but nowhere near the amount that I've got in that 39-gallon tank. Anyway, but yeah, the UV sterilizer, once again, keeping the tank clean and clear, which, like I said, this tank water this has got new filters, so it's a little bit dirty from where everything's been disturbed. But if you see the sink screens don't come built onto those filters. I actually went to Walmart and got the sink screens and used some silicone to attach it, kind of glue the screens on to the intakes, so that it doesn't suck in any fish. It doesn't suck in any. In my other tank, in the 39-gallon, I didn't want it sucking in snails. If you've seen my breeding mollies video, you'll remember the amount of snails that I had. A lot of my snails died and they would lay eggs, and they just weren't very fertile. I don't know what happened. I had a lot of snail eggs. They just didn't ever really come to fruition. But they did finally start. They finally had some snail babies, which is good, because I was starting to run kind of low on snails, and I was worried that I was going to have to go buy more because they just weren't producing another generation. But that's neither here nor there. Back to guppies. I keep getting off on a tangent. You get your water up to 80 degrees. They breed. You have your floating hornwort so that the babies can go hide in. The babies will always go to the top of the tank, except for like the really smart babies who go and hide at the bottom, which is where the parents never look. So those are the ones that will usually survive and grow, and also they're going to be the ones that are like damn near impossible to catch with the net when you try to separate them out. So, look, see this one? Look at this one. Look at that one. I didn't buy. Hell, I may have bought that one. I don't remember. They all look I just don't remember which ones I bought. I'm pretty sure that one there I didn't buy. That one I bought. That one there, not so much. Are these two? I don't know. I might have bought one of them with a blue tail, but I'm pretty sure the only one with a blue tail was a male that I had in here. Whatever. Anyway, short story long, they breed. You separate out the babies and let them live in their own little separate tank, and they'll do their own thing. Oh, look, down here is one of my dwarf African frogs, I think they're called. I don't remember. Just a couple. I got one or two of these aquatic frogs in this tank. They do their own thing. This one here is brave. He's like owning this fucking algae eater like a boss. He's like, I'm living under your chin and you ain't touching me, buddy. I got a white Cory in there, all bottom feeders. But water temperature to 80, have a floating plant, Java moss, hornwort, something like that. They breed. Separate out the babies into another tank where you've got some hornwort, Java moss, whatever, etc. No filtration on the other tank. Just have an air pump with a, what is it called? The filter. Damn it, now I forgot what it's called. It's the filter thing that I showed you a minute ago that was in the back of that one tank. Sponge filter, and it'll do biological filtration between that and the plant. That's all you really need. As long as you keep your plant trimmed, it should keep growing. And if you have too much of it, you can always throw some out. If it sheds and starts filling up the bottom, you're not maintaining the plant. So you want to keep that from happening. And if you want to grow Java moss, hornwort, anything like that, and have some success at growing it, no activated carbon in your filter. Run it through another fish tank that already has activated carbon, and I got a couple. There's a guppy fry right there. Can you see him? You saw him for a minute. Anyway, so that's pretty much it. They're fairly easy to breed. You will end up with a ton of them if you decide to do it. Make sure you have multiple fish tanks. Unless you live really close to a fish store, you can take them, just give them to or trade them to for some supplies or something like that. Usually mom and pop stores will let you do stuff like that, especially if the fish appear healthy. And oh yeah, UV sterilizer keeps your tank water clear, keeps down the spread of diseases like ick and parasites. If one of them gets them, unless they're physically touching another fish, they're not going to get it, because the UV sterilizer helps kill the bacteria and the parasites in the water. Kind of helps keep the spread of diseases down. And that's pretty much it. I'm going to get off here, and you all have an awesome, awesome life. Bye.